Hi, my name is Sam. I'm the So Real Crafty Girl. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I share baking recipes and tips and tricks on how to make your bakes come out great every time. Today I'm going to be making quick sourdough bagels. A quick sourdough bagel uses both sourdough starter as well as a little bit of instant yeast just to speed up the process. A traditional full sourdough bagel will take you about 24 hours to make because you have to leave the dough to ferment with the starter for a long period of time. I will do a future video on that, but for today, we're going to do the quick bagels. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and come bake with me. Okay, real quick before we get started, I'm going to go over a couple of the ingredients. The original recipe that I will link below calls for bread flour. I typically don't keep bread flour in the house, but I always have all-purpose flour. The one I'm using today is organic, unbleached all-purpose flour that I got at Trader Joe's. Any all-purpose flour will work. I do recommend unbleached and organic if you can get it. And then we replace 5 to 6% by weight with vital wheat gluten. So my recipe today calls for 360 grams of bread flour. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to use 338 grams of the all-purpose flour and 22 grams of vital wheat gluten. Together, they're going to make 360 grams of bread flour. I will put the link below for the vital wheat gluten that I use. This one's Anthony's brand. I buy it off of Amazon. You can also buy, I believe it's Bob's Red Mills brand, and a lot of Whole Food stores, Sprouts, health food stores, even some grocery stores will carry Bob's Red Mill Vital Wheat Gluten. You can also order that off of Amazon. I just prefer the Anthony's. I feel like it works a lot better in my experience. So I'll put that link below and let's get started. I'm using my KitchenAid stand mixer today. So to the bowl of my stand mixer, I'm going to add 338 grams of all-purpose flour, 22 grams of vital wheat gluten, 20 grams of brown sugar, 10 grams of sea salt, and 5 grams of yeast. Now here I'm just going to blend together the all-purpose flour with the vital wheat gluten, which now I have made 360 grams of bread flour. Now I'm going to add the sugar, the salt, and the yeast. Give that a good mix, just to blend everything together. And now I'm going to take 215 grams of active bubbly sourdough starter and add that to 170 grams of water. I really should have used a larger measuring cup here because I'm sloshing the water on the counter. So I'm going to have to make up for that water loss later when I start to bring the dough together. Just mix everything together until it's well combined, and then add that to your dry mixture. Try and get it all out of there. You want to get all that sourdough starter in. And then I'm just going to take the dough hook for my stand mixer and start to bring it together. You don't have to do this step. I like to do it because it allows me to scrape down the sides of the bowl as I'm bringing the dough together. It just stops me from having to stop the mixer and scrape down the bowl later. So I'm just bringing it to kind of a loose, shaggy dough, and then I'm going to attach it to the mixer. And as this is mixing, I am noticing that it's a little drier than I want it to be. You do want all the flour to be wet, but not too wet, so you got to be real careful here. I only lost a little bit of water on the counter, so I'm only going to add a tiny bit at a time. And then check my dough to see if it's the correct texture. And it should be firm and tacky, but not really stick to your fingers. Okay, that feels good. Let it knead for 5 to 7 minutes on low speed. Mine kneaded for 7 minutes, and now it's a nice smooth dough. You're going to remove your dough hook from your mixer and get the dough out onto the counter. You can use your hands or a dough scraper here. The dough is pretty firm at this point and it's very easy to work with. It doesn't stick to your hands. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. And I want to form it into a tight ball. So I'm not really kneading here, I'm just sort of shaping it into a nice smooth ball. And you can test to see if it's ready by, if you poke your finger in it and it springs back, then you're good to go. So now I'm just going to get a bowl and lightly spray it with a little bit of cooking spray. Put the dough smooth side up into the bowl and cover it with either plastic wrap or a towel and let it rise in a warm place for about an hour. It's a little cold in my house today, so I decided to use my countertop convection oven. It has a proof setting. A lot of ovens have this as well. So mine is just proof. It's preset to 85 degrees and for 1 hour. In the meantime, go ahead and start to preheat your oven to 425 degrees. Okay, it's been an hour and my dough has risen. It's doubled in size. Looks great. So now it's time to turn it out onto the counter and divide it into equal portions. So very lightly on the flour here because we don't want to be adding extra flour to the dough. And then just a light dusting of flour just so it doesn't stick to your bench scraper as you cut it into pieces. If you don't have a bench scraper, you can use a knife for this. And I'm just going to divide it into 6 equal portions. I do like to weigh my portions. I eyeball them first, and then I like to weigh them because to me it's important that they are all as close to the same size as possible, because then that way they bake at the same rate. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure some pieces and adjust where needed. Once you've got all your pieces, you're going to want to start to form them into small dough balls. So I'm just bringing in all the corners here, pinching it together, and then you want to use the tension of the counter to help you tighten the dough ball. So I'm going to remove all the flour from the counter and then cup my hand over it, and it's kind of like a C cup, like that, yeah. And then you just swirl it really gently. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the dough at this point, and it just tightens up the dough ball. And then set it on your parchment and repeat with the rest. So just fold in the sides, pinch it closed, and in the same circular motion, tighten up the dough ball. Then cover with a damp towel and let to rest for 10 minutes. Once it's rested for 10 minutes, the dough is slackened up a little bit so it's more pliable, it's easier to shape into the final form of the bagel. So you're going to poke a hole in the middle and just start stretching it out. Try and get it as even as possible. You don't have to be too careful here, you just don't want to tear the dough. So just go slowly. And you do want to make the opening larger than what a typical bagel would be when you finish baking it, because when you put it in the water and when you bake it, it does close the hole up a little bit as it rises. So you want to make it a little bit larger than a finished bagel would look. Go ahead and repeat with the rest of the dough. Then cover the bagels with a damp cloth again for another 10 minutes. And in that time, bring a pot of water to a rapid boil, and then you're going to add about 2 tablespoons of honey. You could also use barley malt syrup here. I always have honey in the house, so I don't always have barley malt syrup, so I traditionally just use the honey. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes now. The dough has risen a little bit, which is perfect. It's got nice puffy. And now I'm just going to take them, and I'm going to do them in batches of 2. And you just gently pick them up and drop them into the water. You don't want to overcrowd the pan. I find 2 works well, and this is a large Dutch pot. And you're going to let these boil for about a minute per side. After the first minute is up, go ahead and flip them over and give them another minute on the second side. Using a strainer or a slotted spoon, drain them and replace them back onto the parchment paper. And then repeat with the remaining bagels. This is the time, if you want to add any toppings, now's the time to do it. So what I have here is an egg white and a teaspoon of water beaten together, and then I'm just going to lightly brush the top of each bagel with the egg white wash. This is going to allow the toppings to stick. If you prefer a plain bagel, you can go ahead, skip this step, and bake straight away. I like to put toppings on mine. Today I'm going to be using Everything Bagel Seasoning. This is one I got at Costco. You can even make it up yourself. It's basically poppy seeds, salt, garlic, onions, and sesame seeds. Trader Joe's also sells an everything but the bagel seasoning that's delicious. My bottle here is kind of at the end, and I'm not getting a whole lot of sesame seeds out of it anymore. Kind of all that's left are poppy seeds and salt. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some sesame seeds after this and add those to the top as well. And once you've finished adding your toppings, it's time to bake. Go ahead and put the tray in your preheated 425-degree oven for about 25 minutes. "25 minutes is up, and let's see what we have. Beautiful homemade sourdough bagels in less than 2 hours. Thank you for baking with me today. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.